7:44, we are back with Money Matters, and today we are looking at smart money moves that you can make right now in this tough economy. And joining me this morning is Joel Johnson. He, of course, is the partner in the Hartford-based financial planning firm, Johnson & Brunetti. Good to see you, Joel.
Good to see you again, Logan.
So let's talk about this. It's pretty scary out there. A lot of people are losing their jobs. Unemployment rate is still pretty high. I mean, the market seems to be so volatile. What do you do to try to make sure that you're safe in this kind of an environment?
Well, we could be going into a double dip, which we've been talking about, you and I, here on the program for quite some time. And so people need to do what companies are doing, which is basically being smart with their money, trying to trim some costs and so on. One big thing right now is mortgage rates, which this is a big positive, are really low historically. So if people are thinking about refinancing, it's a great time. 30-year mortgages at around 4%.
Yeah, that is something else. I mean, I don't think they've been that low in I don't even know when, right? I mean,
as long as I can remember, they haven't been that low. I remember my father being excited about being able to refinance at 13% when I was a kid. So 4% looks great.
So refinance if you can. What about securing a credit, maybe getting some kind of a loan on the home? Do you do that as well if you can?
Well, if we're going into a double dip, the bank credit could get tight, which might mean it might be harder to get loans. So if people are thinking about home equity loans or maybe even, changing credit cards, something like that, they want to initiate those transactions to get a loan now because it could get tougher in the future. The banks could tighten up a lot again.
When you say changing credit cards, does that mean if you make some calls right now, maybe you could get a better interest rate on some of the credit cards than if you say wait?
You might be able to get a zero interest rate or a better rate than you have. You might be able to raise your credit line if you feel like you need to do that. I wouldn't recommend borrowing right now, but again, opening up the credit so that if times get tough, you have access to credit.
One of your other suggestions is cutting costs. Where do you cut them? What types of things do you need to do?
Just about anywhere you can. So, if you like to eat at real fancy restaurants, maybe you go down to a medium restaurant. If you're buying a car, maybe not getting all the extras, or maybe buying a 2-year-old car instead of a brand new car if you can.
Sure.
Because again, if we go into a double dip here, there could be more layoffs. Connecticut's been hit pretty hard, and people need to make sure that they've got some money there set aside. Brings us to the subject of an emergency fund.
Yeah.
It always makes sense to have an emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months or, like you said, a year, ideally.
That's what I've heard some people. If you can, obviously. What do you do? How do you do that? Do you just start putting aside a little bit of money and just trying to accumulate some kind of a savings account?
Yeah, most credit unions will do, or banks will do some kind of an automatic draft every month over into a separate account. Try to set the money aside, accumulate it in case there is an emergency or you get laid off.
And the last couple of tips, buy some blue chip stocks. These are just the large companies, right? Ramp up the 401ks if you can. And then, of course, you've got that 529, which is where you put some money aside for the kids' college educations.
Correct. Once you've got that emergency fund set aside, if you can put extra money in the 401k or buy some good quality blue chip stocks, it's a good time to do that.
Joel Johnson, good to see you.
Thanks, Logan.
Appreciate the tips. Erica, over to you.
Online retailer has a news conference scheduled for 10 this morning. The blog TechCrunch says